welcome, welcome, everyone. Please welcome next to me, Joplyn.
Hello. Thank you all for being here.
That's nicer. Thank you so much.
Let's have a round of applause for Christian too.
Yeah, we know each other quite well now, so this is the way we work this masterclass. Welcome to our talk today. We want to talk about creative flow. My name is Christian, as Joplyn just mentioned. I work for Ableton, and we invited Joplyn here today to talk a little bit about creative flow, about things like happy accidents, which every musician is kind of like searching for. And right before we started, you already heard a bit of music from Joplyn while you were settling in. And yeah, to get into the conversation, I would like just to make a statement. What I believe drives a music maker, and what drives us is passion. And my statement here is that passion is not something we have, but it's something we do. And it's something we have to nurture. So, and that I think is sort of my opening statement. I was wondering, would you go with that kind of statement, that passion is not something which is given to us and sort of like, yes, I have it, or I don't have it? Or is it something we do and nurture?
It's definitely something you have to nurture. I mean, there's the saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, which I completely agree with. I think talent only gets you this far, but you need at some point passion or motivation or like a specific yearn for something to really drive this passion and this creativity to its maximum. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
And when do you think that moment of motivation started for you in your quite young career? Like, when was it that you had the feeling like, wow, this is something I want to do?
I mean, there were multiple moments, but I personally, for me, music writing came from writing poetry at a very young age, and then one day I think I went to a Lorde concert, actually, and yeah, seeing her on stage, making music, doing the things she loves, performing her art, I think that was that moment for me where I was like, hey, this is so cool. I mean, she was only a few years older than I was. I want to do this too. So then I connected the dots, started turning my poetry into music. I learned the 4 basic chords on the piano, and then started writing melody. At the beginning, my songs were still very abstract because they were just poems turned into music, turned into melody, and then I started getting into, song structure, harmony, but at the beginning it was all very acoustic at the piano, exactly piano ballads that I was writing and performing. But then one day I discovered, first of all, GarageBand on my computer, and then later, of course, Ableton. And yeah, things started to evolve from there, because I think having that electronic means, this electronic tool helped enrich my music and bring it to the next level from, the piano ballads that I was writing. And yeah, that's what I've been doing ever since.
How old were you when you would say that motivation turned into actually doing?
I mean, the lines are always very blurry, but I think 10 years old.
Wow.
11. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing piano ever since I was 5, so it all came kind of natural to me.
And where would you say did you find sort of the resources to nurture, as we said, that passion and that sort of initial talent which you felt could be nurtured? Like, how did it go for you to look for resources? And did you always find the resources you were looking for?
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the beginning, the only resource that I derived my motivation from was Spotify, because I was just so in awe with the artists I was listening to, that was my primary reason to do it myself. And then, I mean, GarageBand is pre-installed on I think every laptop. So that was just a very lucky find for me. And I was lucky enough to have a keyboard lying around at home because I come from a very musical family. So I would say for me personally, it was always, easy isn't the right word, but I had access to those resources definitely. And I seized this, I used this access to my benefit. But it was definitely, I think for a lot of people, this first step into electronic music, especially for women, since it's such a technical thing to do, is a big step to take, because I think the hurdle to getting into it is very intimidating. So that's something I'm working on to make more accessible.
And would you, like, looking back, would you say there was this one super important mentor for you, or were you like?
I always knew what I wanted,
yeah.
But I was lucky enough to work with Bookashade pretty early on in my career. Legendary duo in electronic music, and yeah, my first song I ever released was a collaboration with Bookashade on a playback, an instrumental that they had sent me, and I wrote a song on top. And to this day, we're still in constant communication about new music. They give me feedback. I also had my first live performance with Bookashade, so they definitely played a big part in my becoming a musician, and still do. And I'm really eternally grateful for them.
Your debut album is called Pappelallee, so you were born and raised in Berlin. When was that released?
That was released this January, I think. Yes, in the middle of the pandemic.
Great timing.
Yeah.
But I guess you couldn't be touring. But how did you then sort of make the best out of the time you were then sort of had on your hands? Like what did you do instead of like touring? How did you try to build up your career in that moment?
I have to say I hadn't toured that much before the pandemic started. 2020 was actually going to be my year of starting to play live and traveling around a little bit. Then of course that didn't happen. And like every other musician, I made an album instead. The album was kind of a compilation of a few songs that were already out, but also quite a few new ones that I predominantly made, meaning wrote, produced, recorded in October 2020. And then I filmed a music video for one of the songs, Mind Actress, in December.
Sorry.
And so I spent my year in the studio alone, but I have to say that I did go on a hunt for inspiration in the summer, because I needed that. I think, you can't force yourself to be in a box 24/7 and be inspired and come up with good creative ideas if you're not giving yourself that creative input to make ideas out of. Yeah.
So I think before we talk too much about music, it would be really fun to dive a little bit into music. So when we came up with the topics of finding your creative flow, we always talked initially before sitting on stage together about sort of these happy accidents, sort of moments where that flow state of mind just seems to offer you something, and you didn't even know it was coming, right? You weren't prepared for it, and so without further ado, I would like to sort of switch to your screen and ask you to, I think what we are able to show today is like being sort of taking it from a voice note you recorded from a song, is that correct? And we can kind of see the process
the whole development of a song. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm very thrilled to show that to you. So maybe let's dive into that.
Okay, of course. No, I definitely agree. I think music, for me, music is such it's basically math. So I think those happy accidents are the one thing I'm striving for always, because they're what adds that human element to it. Because I mean, rhythm, harmony, it's all just numbers. And I think it's also similar to, you know, nurturing passion or having passion. I think you can't be creative. You have to be receptive to creativity. Because with creativity, I mean, this song, this is from a weekend a few months back in Berlin, where I had a deadline for a pretty important song that I should have handed in on Friday. And it was Saturday, the day after that Friday, and I hadn't handed in that song because I spent 2 days in the studio and I just wasn't inspired at all. And I think once you start pressuring yourself and telling yourself, okay, this is the time for me to be creative, and also if you're like on a tight schedule like I am usually, you keep telling yourself, okay, you have to work now, your creative brain has to work now because tomorrow you won't have time for this anymore. And that's like the worst thing you can do to yourself and your creativity, of course. So yeah, I was really frustrated that day because I hadn't, you know, made that deadline, and then there were some other like pretty emotional things happening in my life on that weekend. And yeah, I just, for me it was, with this specific song, it was just a trigger, like I think a text from someone who means a lot to me. And I started crying. This sounds kind of very, very cliche, but I did start crying, and then I somehow went to the piano and tried to capture, I had something that I had to get out of my system, and I wanted to capture that and express myself. So yeah, that's how this voice memo started out. I'm just gonna play it. You can hear me crying, my voice crack at the end. Is that? Oh wait, it's not. Okay.
Stars that chase them.
Maybe we can raise it a bit. Yeah.
Could help me find you. No stars that run away. Can be alone. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're breaking free from it, you're breaking free from it, breaking free from it, and I don't want it alone. Breaking free from it, you're breaking free from it, breaking free from it, and I don't want it alone. Breaking free from it, and I don't wanna go, 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 and I don't wanna go.
Yeah, so that was the voice memo.
Thanks for sharing this extremely emotional and not a
Of
perfect
course.
thing, right?
It's not perfect at all. Thank you so much. Yeah, so as you can see, the voice memo is like 2 minutes long, and I basically wrote that song. I mean, this is still the song in its very raw form, of course, but within 2 minutes. And that's what I was talking about. I mean, the day before and the day before that, I had spent probably 8 to 9 to 10 hours in the studio trying to write a good song, or just to hold something in my hands at the end of the day, and I couldn't get anything done. And then this just happened within 2 minutes because, yeah, I guess I was in that creative flow. I was inspired. Yeah, and then immediately after that, I showed the idea, the melody. I also had a few text fragments already that I wanted to use because this. The weekend was pretty emotional for me because of a specific event that happened in my life, so I already knew what I wanted to write about. So the words came pretty quickly to me too. So I made this rough guide production. I mean, I wouldn't even call this a production. It's just a kick and a few chords. And then recorded this guide vocal track, which is how I usually go about when I write songs, of the melody with a few lyric fragments already in place, together with my co-producer to get some feedback. So yeah, this is this.
Is this what it feels like to be? Oh, the flames get lost in the haze. They flash with red light. Forget. Ooh, I wanna turn you. I'd write all my life.
Nee, weil gerade so laut haben. Wir haben Talking.
Das war ganz airy und dark.
You, and it feels bittersweet, and it's so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. Feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet.
Exactly. So that was again a mixture of me jamming and already, you know, solidifying the melodies even a little bit more. And then.
And at this stage, you already had, as you said, like a few ideas about the lyrics.
Yes.
But you had no clear idea about the melody. It kind of like just
Exactly.
came in that moment. Yeah.
I mean, I had this voice memo,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
but I mean, this melody is still a little different from the
Yeah.
the one in the voice memo. So yeah, it was all just in that moment, in that one take. The song was pretty much up in the air still, and I was still molding it, I guess, into its shape. And then, like an hour after that, it was a crazy day, really. I wrote the whole lyrics to the song, also within I think 30 minutes, because I was just, like I said, extremely inspired. And yeah, and then I wanted to record the vocals the next day because I'd been crying the whole day. My voice was a little, you know, raspy, a little strained. So I didn't want to sing, of course. But then I remember in the middle of the night, at like 3 a.m. or something. Thank God I don't have neighbors anymore.
They all moved out? Or
Exactly. I forced them to move out. No. No, exactly. I recorded just some vocals for fun because, like I said, I was basically that day, to me, that song was on my mind 24/7. So that's all I was thinking about, and I wanted to, you know, get those new lyrics out of my system, but also see how those new lyrics worked with the melody and everything. So I recorded those vocals with no intention of ever using them. It was just for fun, like I said. Wait, is anything else playing? Yes. Still onto that playback, which is just kick and chords.
I follow the headlights before me. I can't focus. Is this what it feels like to be? Won't turn around. The cranes get lost in the
Right, I'm just. I highlighted a few places here, which is where I did something that I also usually do. I often give myself room and space while I'm being creative, or while recording vocals, you know, that's a question for itself, if it's still being creative or if it's just executing something, executing the creative work, which you did prior. But I did leave some parts in the melody where the melody to me was still very undefined, because I wanted to force myself to kind of, you know, write that melody in that moment on the spot. So yeah, that's what happened.
This is because you had that experience already before, that in those sort of
exactly, that's
pressure
those happy
moments,
accidents again, exactly, where you have to do something because you're singing, but you have no framework yet, and you're not as restricted in your melody writing or in your singing as I was with the verse, where everything was already, you know, set in stone, set in place. So yeah, I think I had a few. This is the final take I used.
So maybe for those who are not so familiar now, the grayed out takes is not what you actually used,
Exactly.
and the ones which are colored are the takes you then decided to be the finals, right?
Yeah.
So you use like a comping function here, and
Exactly. I mean, the takes were all green at the beginning, and then I go through them and colored the ones that I liked pink, and then those yellow ones I just did afterwards for the sake of showing you guys today.
and then also maybe to just get it clear, basically you have a loop running,
Yes.
and you were just doing like 1, 2, 3, like 8 takes or something.
10, yeah.
And that's definitely the process you would
Exactly.
choose for
That's
writing
how I
music.
always do it. I always like to record on a loop because
Yeah.
I don't like being interrupted, because I need a few takes to get into it. Most of the times, I mean, sometimes it's also the first take that already has the magic in itself. But yeah, I don't know. Or I mean, I don't know what this was.
See, see the
So yeah, just a few basic, few different variations that I could then at the end choose from with a clear head and objectively decide for myself which one I liked the best.
What I find super interesting here is also that you mentioned already like twice, like, oh, this is just your backing instrumental, but it inspires you enough to sort of keep
Yeah.
yourself going, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, because I would say there are musicians who sort of need that sound to be already super perfect in order to feel inspired. But like for you, the chords, sort of is quite simple piano sound,
Yeah.
and that sort of kick running through is enough for you to have your mind going and or
Exactly, yeah.
not going, I guess, turning your mind off and just being in that zone. Yeah.
Yeah, it tends. I mean, me personally, I tend to work even better with simple instrumentals because then I think if the emotion is already in the instrumental already, you're kind of competing with it, and sometimes there's no room even left for the vocals. So I think recording for me personally onto very basic, very empty instrumentals where there's lots of room for me to just bring that spark into the music through only my vocal performance makes it a lot easier for me personally.
I would even like to see maybe some hands going up just to see how the room would work the same way. Like, I don't know, there might not be so many vocalists in the room, but who of you sort of needs that music in that moment already to be quite perfect, to be inspired by the sound? I would like to see like some hands maybe going up if that works for you. Or are you also sort of on the side of like the chord structure is what drives the
Or
song?
the idea of the song.
Maybe okay. Can you repeat the question? So sort of like me personally, I'm not a trained musician, but I've been making music for 20 years. For me, it's all about the sound itself. Like if that kick is not the kick I want, and if that snare is not because I'm rather the producer. So versus like sort of the perfect sound for actually finishing the song versus chord structure, and therefore allowing you to keep writing melody, keep writing the structure of the song, sort of like those two sides, like some people are able to basically write the whole song and then switch the sounds to their preferred sound once the whole song is finished, Well, we don't have to do the raising the hands
But it's an
game, but
interesting
I
question,
I just thought I highlight that difference, like some people can finish the whole song, and you would
Yeah.
say that what works for you because in the center of it is your vocals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really depends, like you said, on if you're more producer-based
Yeah.
or more vocal songwriting, I guess, based. I mean, that's a speculation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then, I mean, there's another short little part I can show you. Wait, I'm just going to go back to how it's supposed to be. So here, for example, as you can see in the first takes, this wasn't part of the melody. Wait, I'm just going to play it.
Ooh, I wanna turn you to poetry.
So first of all, that ooh wasn't supposed to be in that song. That was just something I did because I was just so into it and just feeling the music. Kind of like, yeah, like just a sound that puts even more expression into it. So when I was recording take number 5, I just did that because I felt like doing it. And then,
Oh, I wanna turn you to poetry.
and then I liked the sound of that so much, and the vehemence of it, the emotion in that, that I decided to just pull through with it and started to make it part of my final vocal melody. So that's another one of those happy accidents, I guess. Yes, so that's the vocals. I then, at the end, did a lot with harmony. I recorded a whole choir type of thing.
It feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. And it feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. It feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. And it feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go.
Exactly. So I like in my music to work a lot with vocal stacking, as you can see, because I think again it has this tribal almost, this feeling of togetherness. So yeah, that's something I did. And then something I think which you found interesting last time was I recorded just for fun again, like a short at the end, because I don't know, I just felt like it. Didn't really feel like using it for anything in particular. I just recorded it for fun. Yeah, and then this short little actually became like an essential part of the whole production of the song, which I'm going to show you now. I mean, I have to say the song is still not finished, not even close to being finished. It's still in its very basic forms.
Even cooler that you share it with us now then.
Of course. Wait, I just have to sort my, okay. Exactly, so then, wait, I'm just gonna.
Do you have a lot of sort of unfinished songs lying around? Like, and you work simultaneously on several songs?
Exactly, I work simultaneously on, I think, like 5 to 6 songs. It always depends on the mood I'm in, or sometimes I want to make something new and I just, have this tingling in my fingers to just make something new instead of working on something old. But then I'd say before a release, I just sit down for 2 weeks and really hyper-focus, work on one specific song, and then release it immediately after. Because I think if you wait too long to release it, then you're kind of like back to, okay, maybe I could change this up still. You're not under that time pressure. And for me, I mean, I think every musician would agree with me when I say a song is never truly done. There's always things to tweak to perfection or to change up. And I definitely get caught in that hamster wheel a lot, where I worked on something for so long and then I listen back to the first demo I had of that song and I'm like, where did I go wrong? Like, the magic is still in that demo, and this new thing is nothing like the demo, and I don't know exactly how this even turned into this and how they are even related anymore. And I mean, something like I like to say a lot, which I also told you already, is that music production is often reduction, because in the end, you really only need that foundation of beat, bass, and in my case, voice or melody. And if that framework, that foundation, isn't inherently, already something you like and something you feel proud of and want to release and stand for, then I think adding synths, adding whatever, automating and everything, it's just adding extras to the foundation. But if the foundation isn't stable in itself, it's not going to fix the song. So I like to just, I mean, as you're going to see with this song, these are just 5 elements, and it already works in my opinion, in its most simple, most empty form.
Just before you play it, just to highlight that again, so that means you work rather like a sculpture, like sort of like taking things away to
Yeah.
to craft and to highlight the actual strong idea behind a song.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's all just supposed to be supporting of the idea of the song. And what I also, the way I think is that for every part of my song, there's a specific element that's in the spotlight. And I don't want any other element to compete with that specific element or take the shine away from that element. So that could be either a cool vocal line, it could be a synth line, or if there's a part of the song where it's only about the beat and about dancing and, you know, feeling the groove, then I want the beat to be, you know, extra highlighted, and the rest to just be there to support it and to add context, of course, to the part I'm highlighting. But exactly, I think it's important to have one thing per part of the song to really, work towards putting on top of everything else.
And then I would also like to just touch up on what you said, what I found quite interesting, that it can happen that in the process of sort of working from your demo to the final song, that you might also be like, where did I go wrong? And would you then sort of track back and sort of maybe jump back to that very demo moment of the song to try and capture it again? Or
I mean, what I do is I have all of my tracks, and then I start muting everything, and starting with only the beat, then the bass, then the voice, the three, I mean, the holy trinity, I guess, and then slowly fading in all of the other elements I added along the way, and then really see if that element really enriches the song and makes a big difference and has its own emotional importance to the song, or if it's just background noise. And then I go from there. And in the end, I often have like a framework of, I guess, 6 or 7 tracks that are basically the foundation, the skeleton of the song. And then I really decide if I even want to add anything else. And if I do want to add anything else, then I'm very meticulous and very particular about what I'm adding. And that for me has always been the most efficient way and has worked the best of combining, that demo idea of the song with the production I made along the way.
I think it's a powerful statement, like for people who try to finish music. Anyone in the audience who has troubles finishing songs? Like, I would just like to see that.
I think everyone does.
Yeah. But I think it's a great advice, like to step back and then sort of
and
start with the
time.
Trinity, as you said, and then
exactly.
just keep adding it again and being like, you know what, this might be an idea for a different song.
Exactly.
And
I
then
mean,
do you have like a
doesn't
folder?
have to be,
maybe really also throw.
Yeah, but I never look into that folder. It's the folder of dread. No, no, but exactly. You can either use it for a different song, and also an element doesn't have to be bad for it to not make it into a song. It just, I think, doesn't have. For me, if it doesn't add emotional value or if it doesn't add value at all, it's out. And I think it's also important giving yourself time to step back and forget about the song for a few weeks. If you have that, luxury, of course, not if you're working on deadlines, which I am often. And then, exactly, go back into the project with fresh ears and then start that whole process. Because if you're still, too much into the song, doing this process isn't as efficient, of course, because you're not as, distant from it. And I think you need that distance to make the right, whatever that means, decisions in the end. Yeah. Well, I can...
now I think it's cool to see what you tried to show, and then I kept interrupting you. But
all good. All good.
That element where you had that sounds and how that moment actually turned into sort of like the beginning of your song, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in the beginning,
Follow the headlights.
so these are now the
before
vocals
me.
plus the production.
I can't focus.
Oh wait, sorry.
Follow the headlights before me.
So it was just the
I can't focus.
then I added the synth.
Is it loud enough?
This is
or
what
should
it
it be a little
feels
bit louder?
like to be.
You can hear it? Look, can we hear it a
Turn
bit louder?
around. The cranes get lost in the haze.
Then I
Flash
added
with red light.
bass.
Now heroes are shouting from airplanes. It'll all be fine. Whoa.
stems of the song exactly, and the track, the vocals that I ended up using. Because exactly, I didn't even finish the story. The next day, I wanted to record.
I interrupted.
Oh, good. I forgive you. No, the next day I wanted to record the final vocals for the song, and I went into the studio, did my vocal warm up, and I was like, okay, let's do this. And then I started singing, and I just, for some reason, couldn't get that emotional weight into the vocals that I had during the night. I think just because, you know, I had stopped crying at that point, and I wasn't that emotionally intertwined into the song anymore. And exactly, I started singing, and after 3 takes, I was like, okay, there's no way I could ever replicate the emotion that's in those takes that I recorded the night before. So in the end, I just, you know, spent the morning comping those takes instead of recording new ones. So yeah.
So you went for something which was actually meant to just be a demo.
Exactly.
And
just
that turned into
another happy accident, if you will. No, for sure. But that's actually something I do a lot, where I record demo vocals without thinking about them at all, with no pressure, just to kind of, you know, have the melody on Ableton already. And then I listen back to them, and I end up taking those, because I think there's often a lot of, you know, energy and a lot of vibe, and like an artistic, a certain type of artistic statement within demo vocals that isn't in the vocals that you record professionally with the intention of having them on the record. So I often mix the two, actually. Yeah.
Is it also because you have a different mic for, like, just out
No,
of
because
curiosity?
I know myself, so
Yeah.
I record all my demo vocals with, you know, a good mic, with the same one I use for my real
Smart.
vocals. Yeah, because I already know that I'm going to go back to them eventually, sometimes. And yeah, I want to keep that door open. And now this is, like I said, version 1. It's not at all finished, but I already play the song live, and the people love it, and it's always my last song, actually. Yeah, so I can just...
See the horizon fade. The one sounds big dream. Some will age freeze from our mistakes, or will we forget? Oh, I wanna turn you to poetry. I'd write all my life. Ridiculous reality, and all I try. It feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. And it feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. And it feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go. And it feels bittersweet, and it feels bittersweet. It feels so bittersweet, and I don't wanna let go.
Well, thanks for sharing this.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, so the vocal steps, which you said, the you then processed that a bit, like, could you like solo that? Do you have it there?
course.
So it almost doesn't sound like your vocals anymore, right? Like, so.
Wait.
So then, in the end, quite a bit of modulation happened in there. I felt it was even changing from the sounds and stuff.
Yes. 1 second. I mean, there's just some reverb, some EQing, and then I don't even think I used the whole harmonies. Probably just used this. This one. I mean, I didn't even use the step down. I just used this part.
Just that one note.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Super fun.
yeah, I mean, I always like adding something as organic and human as vocals, which is the most human instrument you can get to electronic beats, because I like combining things that don't conventionally belong together. For example, my last song, I actually used an old fado sample, Portuguese traditional sample, and also weaved that into that electronic production. I can also play it. So yeah, I always love playing around with, the place, that area where between electronic, hard, mechanical almost beats and production, and this warm human vocal organic element.
Like for that specific song, it's like basically the latest single which you have out, right?
Yeah, it's my newest one.
What's it called?
It's called Severa, which
Severa.
is with the woman the sample is about. She's Maria Severa. She was the woman who pioneered fado in Portugal. So that's. I mean, I'm always inspired by women who made and make a big difference in music, because there aren't that many. So I named the song after her as an homage to her, almost.
What will it take now for you to finish the? Does the other song actually have a name already, or?
This one?
No, the one we were sort of doing the track
bittersweet, because
bittersweet.
Because it feels bittersweet. So that's the reason, and also the whole weekend was pretty bittersweet for me.
What will it take for you to finish it? Like, how long do you think you're gonna keep it at this almost finished state? I guess.
I think now I'm kind of running into the fear of, because I'm now so used to this demo production, as I've said, I've been playing it live quite a lot, that if anything new will probably sound so strange to my ears that I will always go back to this.
Dangerous.
It's a dangerous place to be in. So for me, it would probably take just a few more weeks of just not hearing it at all.
Or some deadline, maybe.
Yeah, or that. And the deadlines, oh God, they always get me. Exactly, and then going back into the project. Also, like I said, muting all of the tracks, seeing what I really like, even though this is still very basic, like I said. And then maybe, I think there's a lot to do with automation. Again, production is reduction, so I think rather than adding another element or another synth line or whatever, I'll probably go and play around with the macros a little bit and see what I can do to help to basically leave the song as it is with the elements that are already within the song, but try to add a little more dynamic and variation into that song.
Before, I think instead of waiting until the end to open the floor for questions, also, I'm also inviting you to throw some questions at us at this stage. I think that keeps our talk here a bit more dynamic. Feel free, to raise your hand, and there's a question here.
Okay, you were talking about.
Oh wait, there's a mic coming for you.
Oh, okay. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Is it working?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you.
That you are talking about motivation, and I think that is a really important when you try to do something, because it's like you can do something in 15 minutes, and in other days that you are not motivated, you can be the whole day doing something and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So in those moments that you don't feel motivation, what do you do beside music to
There's
do? okay, to do other stuff to make you go again to that?
If I have the luxury of not having a deadline, I just leave the song as it is and do something else to just get my mind off of things and take the pressure out of it. But something else I do a lot, which sounds kind of weird, is just laying down on the floor, turning off the lights, and just giving myself like 15 minutes to just not think about anything. Kind of like meditating, actually. Like laying down, not thinking about anything, clearing my head. And yeah, I really just like lie on the ground, on the floor for a few minutes. And then sometimes, even while I'm still lying, I'll come up with a new melody or something, just out of the blue, because I think if you need to give your brain time to wander to come up with something new, especially if you're caught in a rut and always only coming up with the same old melodies that you're not really vibing with. And then when I get up, I try to, it's just like a little refresh, like turning your phone off and on. That's something I do, or something else I do is actually take little fragments of other artistic works that I personally like, and trying to turn them into something of my own. For example, I have a poetry book by Charles Bukowski in my studio that I open sometimes, and I mean, there's so many good poems in there. And then I just open it on a random page and try to turn the poem that I landed on into melody, because I think, there's already so much rhythm in language, and in poetry, of course, especially, that those, singing his lines often makes me come up with new cool melodies that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. Or I also have like Sade and Sting and a lot of people's sheet music in my studio with the chords also. So sometimes I take one of those books and just open it on a random song, preferably, of course, on a song that I don't know that well, because, of course, if you know a song very well and then play the chords of that song, you're always prone to then also singing that song onto those chords. But I do that too, and then play around with the chords of the greats, let's just call it that, and see what I come up with. And then I force myself to not listen to their song until the very end of my songwriting process. And I think another thing which helps me with motivation is just, there's a fine line between consuming and watching other artists for your own sake and motivation, but I think, watching people you admire at their craft, like watching live videos or studio videos or listening to music by artists you love, just puts you into a state where you also want to do the same and also want to create. And I heard once that even if you like, for example, if you watch on YouTube a video of someone playing live that you admire, and you really think in your brain, okay, this is me on stage right now, and you imagine turning the filter knobs or whatever, triggering that one sample, like being there on stage with them or being in their skin, that has such a profound effect on your brain that it will immediately boost your motivation and make you affiliate and associate yourself more with that thing you're doing in that moment, which is creating. So I tried that, and it worked for me, but also I'm pretty easily inspired by people, so I don't know if that's just me. But yeah, those are a few things that I've been doing, and that always seem to help.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. I would like to ask you about the creative process, choosing the sounds that is going to be around your voice. Are you using a library, or you are making the sound design, or how is the choosing, or going to the whole sound is going to go in this way, in this direction, with the tonality, more a base it in the tonality of all the sounds that you choose.
Could you? So if I.
If you could talk about how is your creative process in the choosing of the tone of the voice.
Okay.
The tone of the instruments kicks, pianos, outside of
outside of the vocals.
The vocals,
yeah.
or the musical skill.
Um,
to say and so.
I mean, there's never like one process I do it. Sometimes a song for me starts with a beat actually, or like a specific bass line, or sometimes it's a vocal melody, like in this case. And I just always go with my guts. I mean, I have no real regimen that I stick to. I don't have like a specific sound pack or something that I always use. I mean, I'm going to be honest about it. I get inspired by splice loops a lot. I like to incorporate them into my production, and I also just love messing around with, you know, different synths, with like Arturia plugins, and, you know, turning knobs wherever I can, and then just molding a song, a sound, and yeah, exactly, just seeing what I think matches the mood and the vibe of the song and the energy that I want to transmit with the song, and yeah, that's how I usually go about it.
Is anyone not familiar to Splice? Just want to make sure we're all under the... You want to like explain what Splice is?
Splice is just a website where I think you pay €8 a month. This is kind of like an ad.
No, it's fine. I
exactly.
think it's cool to share what it actually
No,
is.
of course. No, Splice is a really good tool where there's just like millions of samples of any kind. Like there's traditional gamelan, like Indonesian samples. There's cool Berlin techno beats. There's whatever sound you think of. If you think of, okay, I want like a horn in my song, then you go on Splice and look up horn, and you have like just a bunch of horns, and then if you like one of those samples, you can click on that sample and go on show similar or something, and then it like pops up with like a bunch of new sounds that sound kind of similar to, you know, the one that you liked, and it's an awesome tool. I mean, there's of course a lot of contention about it being, you know, taking away the musicality of production, and, you know, making it so easy for everyone to become a producer and blah blah. Sorry. No, but I don't agree with that. I think at the end it depends on the idea, and I see Splice as just another tool for, you know, getting that idea into a song.
Before we take the next question, I would also like to say that it's totally legitimate to work with sample packs and being inspired by that, because in the end it just puts you into a zone where you're not just a creator, but also a curator.
Exactly.
You know, like because every chord progression has been written. Yeah, like you're not going to come up with a different chord progression. So it's all about the combination of things which sort of are offered to you.
Exactly.
And I would also like to add, like my take on whenever we enter sort of like that writer's block moment, when there is no creativity sort of coming out, I think it's a beautiful sort of housekeeping task to go through your Ableton library or Splice or whatever you prefer, and like sort of just being like, instead of, as you mentioned, instead of working with the same instruments or presets over and over again, in that moment of like, I don't know, I cannot write the melody, but I for sure can still go through these thousands of sounds and be like, all right, I have never used this one.
Exactly.
And the inspiration could come from that.
Yeah, and you're led into a direction which you would never have gone in if it, you know, hadn't been for you hearing this one specific Splice loop. I definitely agree. I love Splice. It's a great tool. Yeah.
I saw there was another question. Yeah.
My name's Darren, and my question is kind of like, as a person who is having a lot of problems with deadlines, how is it for you? I kind of felt as you're having too, but is it better to have deadline as an artist? I guess it's a hate-love relationship, and you're having those deadlines to have enough releases. Am I getting right? That was one question first.
I definitely think it's a love-hate relationship. I think as an artist, you have to force yourself at some point to just hand your music in, your art in, because, like I said, a song is never truly done, a painting is never truly done, nothing is ever truly done. And for me, I can only work under pressure. I mean, there's the Parkinson law, which...
For me, it's ADHD,
is it the Parkinson?
called. I don't know.
Exactly, it's the law where the law that states work stretches to feel the time allotted. And that's just so true, because I mean, like I said, you can, I mean, in this case it didn't work, but you can write a song. If you're given 2 hours to write a song, you're going to write a song in 2 hours. If you're given 6 days to write a song, I'm probably going to do it on that last day before the deadline, and then like also get it done within a time frame of 6 days. So yeah, I think having deadlines, even though they can take the fun out of it and that like easiness and yeah, that creativity, because you're just forced to work.
Yeah, it's gonna
and
push you to
exactly,
be creative.
Exactly. It can be good or bad, but I think the best thing is to work with deadlines. I mean, I make myself my own, like deadlines a lot, and I also try to take them seriously, even though they're only by myself for myself. But then if you don't get something done on time, to also not to go easy on yourself and allow yourself more time if you feel within yourself that the only thing you need is more time. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
of course. Anything else?
Yeah, I like how so many hands went up when I asked whoever has problems finishing songs. And there's this, it sounds a bit like a joke, but I once asked another musician friend, like, so how do you deal with it, and how do you get better with finishing songs? And he said, yeah, by finishing songs. Like, I mean, how do you get better at making beats? Is by keep making beats. So what I'm trying to get here is, sometimes you can finish a song and it doesn't have to be your best song, like, but it allows you to go on. Does that resonate with you? Like
exactly, yeah. Sometimes you just have to get the bad ones out of your system, and then you can get to the good ones. And that's definitely the case with me. I mean, when I'm at that point in a song where I know no matter what I do, I don't like the song, then I'm not going to force myself to finish the song just to have finished it. But it's definitely, for me, good to have just a repertoire of songs that are just, lying in my Dropbox. No one's ever going to hear them unless I decide for them to be heard. But just to have them, and there's a lot of things that can happen out of those songs. I mean, one of my collaborations with Book a Shade, Polar Lights, that was a song I'd written like probably 5 years ago, recorded, like it was all done, just didn't end up liking it. And then Walter from Book a Shade asked me if I had any vocals lying around. And I was like, yeah, I do, but I didn't really, like, they're just like old songs that I don't really like that much, but sure, have a listen. So I sent him the folder, and he picked out, that specific song, and put those vocals onto an instrumental of his, and made like a completely new song out of those vocals of another song that I had. And then I ended up loving that song, and yeah, a whole song kind of developed out of those old vocals that I thought no one was ever going to hear. Now it's on their album and everything, and that happens a lot. I mean, there's a poem I once recorded that also now just recently turned into a song. So I think just having a lot of material lying around just for people to collaborate, because often the only thing you need is just a second opinion, a second artistic hand to work with your art and turn it into something new. And I think that's like one of the prime reasons also to always finish something. I mean, finishing, like I said, is a very vague word, but to always just bounce as much as you can.
To to commit, right? Like
exactly.
Sort of like if what we're getting here, I think our minds might think the same thing. Like MIDI will still allow you to keep modulating it until the end of time, but bouncing it into an audio track, you commit to it, and that's it. What I also liked how you shared that earlier you said sort of production is reduction, and quite often you use that process, and yet you might have not seen the finished version. So and then you just said how Walter from Book a Shade saw more in something which was for you maybe something which will forever just lie around.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even you yourself who is able to sort of find those reduced moments and
exactly.
being able to finish it.
That's why I think feedback and communication is always super important. Like I have, like I said, a co-producer that I always talk things back with, and like I said, when I had this first idea, the first thing I did was, I showed him the idea, and then he gave me his feedback. Like I said, I talk a lot also with Book a Shade. A lot of people that I admire musically, I love to show them the stuff I'm working on, especially if I'm not sure, and just ask them what they think. And sometimes they come up with ideas that I would never have come up with myself, and then I can work with those ideas again and synthesize them into my own versions of those ideas.
it's also a nice privilege to have that pool of I guess
course.
close friends, music makers.
Of course.
But it's something. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be Bookershade.
No, of course not.
Like I think the message here is it would be a great advice to sort of have a small group of friends who you're sort of you are daring or like you're brave enough to share.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. The number one thing is just don't be vain.
Yeah.
Like be okay to be okay with being fragile and vulnerable to those people. Because I mean, showing people your art is the most vulnerable thing you can do ever. Especially if it's not finished, especially if you're not 100% even happy with it or sure about it. So I think letting down those barriers and really opening up yourself and what you've been working on, your creative process to trusted people is one of the best things you can do.
Any other questions from the floor before we pick up our conversation here? Fantastic. I think it's great this way instead of like waiting until the end and just having you take part.
Yeah, for sure.
Is this working? Yeah.
It is.
This is actually like not. It's quite a simple question actually, and it's just again back to creative flow, and it's just about using Ableton. Do you find that Ableton, does the structure of the program itself like help you find more creativity, or have you tried any other programs?
I've only ever worked with Ableton or GarageBand, like I said in the very beginning, but I wasn't producing that much then. But I think Ableton is one of the most advanced, DAWs when it comes to randomizing things. And I mean, even with MIDI, you have all those different, opportunities of inverting, reversing, everything. And I love to play around with that. And I use that actually quite a lot, those tools, just because it helps me, again, come up with new melodies and new ideas. So that's another reason why I love Ableton. And another really cool feature that they have. Do you want to add anything? I mean, he's the master of Ableton.
I'm not. But I would just like to jump to your project here, and I noticed you work a lot in the arrangement view. Do you ever work in the session view?
When I use the push, I do a
All
lot.
right.
This song, for example, I didn't use the Ableton push to create because, like I said, I wrote it on at the piano. But when I, make music on the Ableton push from start to finish, I use the other view a lot. Yeah, because it's just even more, I think, spontaneous and interactive to be able to turn things off and on really quick and jump around with different loops, different samples, and see how different things work together.
Anyone in the room who would like us to explain maybe the difference between the session view and the arrangement view? Well, that's cool then. But yeah, I like how to work in a non-linear way sometimes. I guess when you write vocals, it's not the first choice, but as you say, when you work with sound, it makes a lot more sense also for you to work in a non-linear way of working with music.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There was another question right next to you, yeah.
Hello. I wanted to ask how often it happens to you where you just completely quit on a project, or when you're like, okay, this is going nowhere, this isn't good enough, goodbye.
Quite a lot, actually.
How do you get to that point? Sorry.
Huh?
When do you get to that point where you're like, this is going nowhere, I'll just stop?
A lot of the times pretty quickly. I tend to notice pretty quickly if I really don't like something, because at the beginning I have to completely love it and be super excited about something to continue doing it. If it's only like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I don't know, then I won't even have the motivation and passion to, finish it. But I would say, I write about, writing songs is a very traditional thing to say. I make about 3-4 songs, I would say, a week. Songs, more of ideas, basically. And I think I scrap 3 of those 4 ideas, and then I end up with 1 idea probably a week. So it's definitely more than half of it. Yeah, because I think if, like me, I know I'm at a point now where I know what I want and what I want to stand for. So that decision, I think it's a very intuitive decision, of course. but it happens really often to me to just be like, okay, this is just a waste of time. Let's just try something new. And most of the time, I mean, maybe I've already written a world hit, and I just don't know, because I trashed it before it could ever turn into a hit.
You should share that Dropbox folder with
Yeah,
us.
better not. No, but I think it's the best thing to do, because at the end, like you said, you're just a curator as an artist, and you also have to be a curator of your own stuff.
You shared in various conversations with me that also what your friends are already used to, that you record a lot of voice memos. It could be that you just walk through SAEs institutes and that you just like sort of grab your phone.
Yeah, I'm always on voice memos. Yeah, it's just because, like I said, I think ideas to me come in when I give my brain time and space to wander around, and that's a lot of the times under the shower or like right before you fall asleep, like when you're already half asleep, and you have that one like melody stuck in your head that you just have to record, and that's why I keep my phone with me like at all times. And sometimes it's like you said, also in the middle of a conversation with a friend or as I'm walking through Mitte or whatever, I just grab my phone, and even if it's just like mid-sentence of me just saying da-da-da-da or something, I don't know, and recording that, I use those chops, those little like ideas. I have like a folder on my Dropbox actually where I put all of the ideas that are a bit better than the other ones. And then when I'm like out of ideas, I just go through that folder and look for something. And most of the times I often forget about the things I record, but if they're in that folder, and then if I look back on them like a month later, I'm like, whoa, this is actually kind of a cool thing. And then I turn that into a song again. So yeah, it's definitely, for me, since my main instrument is also my voice, it's really practical to always just, have your phone rolling and recording those little magic bits. And sometimes, like, I've even had voice memos where I've, sampled those voice memos because, again, there was just some type of thing in that voice memo and used that in the final production.
Out of curiosity, has it also been like beat ideas that you would just sort of like beatbox a little idea? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can't beatbox, but exactly.
No, I also can't, but I do that.
Like, ideas, yeah. That's the versatility of the human voice.
Yeah.
You can kind of imitate every single instrument there is.
Really fun. Does that also resonate with people here in the audience? Like, do you use that voice memo trick box?
Being an artist, I skipped that part where I'm managing, but I was doing this since I was a child. It started with my mom's phone, and I started recording myself singing other songs.
And then still, I'm not gonna record anything, but I still do sometimes because I just think it's so makes sense. Like if somebody's gonna need it someday, even that it just sounds beautiful at that moment. And I feel like it's a great idea. That's why I was smiling all the time because I can so much relate.
Yeah, you're just capturing something.
Yeah,
and you're
best way to be creative because then you can pick it up and put it together as you're doing.
Exactly, and sometimes, I think what's also interesting then is synthesizing different voice memo ideas that were recorded completely like independently of each other, and then turning all those ideas, transposing them to all be in the same key, and then just making a song out of independent ideas that worked well on its own and work even better together.
In the end, it sounds like they belonged together all the time. Maybe
exactly.
It's like the
you're like,
under influence of the mind, like, okay, this was your song anyways, but you realized it when it was finished.
Exactly, yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
What I would also like to know is sort of in your career so far, which has not been that long yet and full of really cool opportunities, I would say. How early were you sort of brave enough to be like, what I'm trying to get here is like how, like music making is not easy, yeah? Music making is not easy, and it should be quite fun at every stage, and yet I think a lot of people think they need to really master this sort of create a skill out of it or master it before they're brave enough to show their work. like, how was it for you? Was it quite intimidating
Yeah.
for a really long time, or
It
were
still
you-
is.
Yeah,
I mean, I
okay.
think we're all a work in progress. And I think you're always, in a year from now, going to look back onto the things you're doing right now and be like, what the hell was I doing? Even though right now you're like, this is the best thing I've ever done. But I think there just comes a point where you have to just admit to yourself that that's always going to be, you know, it's always going to be like that. And the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is now. So just, you know, get that stuff out, coming through with all the motivational quotes. But I mean, they're true.
Yeah.
And exactly, I think it's also like allowing yourself to make mistakes, and allowing also people to see those. I mean, mistakes is the wrong word, but to be part of your journey and see your journey and see how you evolve, and just be on there, have fun together with you, and be there for the ride of you developing your own artistic persona. And I think even nowadays, I would say I have found myself more musically than like a year ago. I mean, I've had like a short, like 6 months where I was doing rap music, kind of like hip hop, R&B type music, which is something completely different from what I do now. But I think it was important for me to kind of get that out of my system, and then go back to electronic music, and now streamlining it, and being clear in my head about what I really want to do, because I tried out everything that interests me, and this is the one thing that really stuck with me. And I think if you don't allow yourself to try those things out, then you're always going to be curious, and there's always going to be this lingering yearn or need for you to one day try it out. And I think it's better for yourself to, you know, allow yourself to try them out, and then allow yourself to make a decision based on everything you've tried out and based on the experiences you made trying that out, to find your own sound.
Does that resonate with most of you in the room too, or are you really hard on yourself and you just only show like at the very late stage in your career, or where you like whoever like feels this, like I would like to see like how that resonates with you guys. Like you kept sharing and sharing, like that's good.
Yeah, no, I think I forgot what I was going to say.
That's okay,
good.
because we all made
Yeah.
mistakes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think there's beauty in raw things, and beauty in not knowing 100% where you are, and beauty of, you know, always evolving and always moving. So
Really fun. I think we covered amazing grounds here. Beautiful track deconstruction. I really love the questions from the audience. I'm more than happy to still keep the floor open for 1 or 2 questions, but otherwise I would say we nailed it pretty much with your creative flow.
thank you so much.
But yeah, please go ahead and raise your hand if you have another question. Oh, there's 2 more questions. Beautiful.
I wanted to ask, you said in the beginning that the worst thing you can do to your creativity is when you tell yourself you have a deadline, you have to do this. But let's say you do have a deadline and you actually have to do this. Do you have any tricks, any places you like to go, any things you like to play, read, whatever? Just any tips on how to
Make
stimulate your creativity, basically?
I mean, like I said, lying on the floor is like my #1 thing. I think it's always important also, like, because you mentioned going to specific places, to give yourself input, because you can only be creative if there's enough, impressions in your brain to turn around, to process into, something new. That's, like I said, why I last summer really went on a hunt for inspiration. I mean, I didn't call it that in my head, but I just, I wasn't that creative that summer. I was just out, enjoying life. And then I think that was really necessary for me to be able to then stimulate new creative work in October in the studio. So it's definitely, I think there's always a good excuse to travel, and that doesn't even have to mean travel to a different country. It could also just be traveling through Berlin, traveling through your neighborhood, seeing new things, and yeah, giving your brain new things to process.
Or travel through your mind.
True. That's what I do when I'm lying
Yeah.
on the floor. So, yeah.
And I saw there was one more question. Yeah, right here in the beginning. The mic is coming to you.
Thank you. Are there any cool little tricks in Ableton that are like your one or two favorites that you discovered and you started to use them all the time? Like just something you can show or would like to share? Some cool, neat little tricks maybe people don't know about yet? Something.
Secrets.
Oh God, secrets of Ableton. Let me think. I mean, for me, the most important new update was comping, but I think that's not really a new trick. But like I said, with MIDI, I mean, there's, I mean, they're not secret. It's just, I have to say, I just use the very basic things because, yeah. But I love playing around with reversing, inverting, speeding up, a sample or slowing it down. And also, like I said, the vocal comping, playing around with, different starting points of an audio sample and seeing how that changes the whole rhythm, the whole melody of the sample. I would say, and also something that happens a lot is but that's not a secret trick. So something I do is when I move like audio clips, that I like drag and drop them and let them go too early or too late, and that they're like in a different place within the grid.
Mm-hmm.
And then oftentimes I play it, and then I realize that the way I just moved them accidentally actually sounds a lot cooler than how they were supposed to be.
So playing around with the timing.
Exactly, with
when-
the timing, exactly with the Ableton grid. But I mean, that's not a secret at all, but it's just something I love doing. Thank
Do you use the probability functions already, or because
No.
in Live 11 we also introduced sort of randomizations and probability of MIDI notes, which is pretty
Oh
fun.
yeah, no, I saw. Yeah, I saw like a YouTube video and wanted to get into
It's also
that.
not a secret, but I just felt it's cool to mention,
Yeah.
sort of, which allows you to, let's say, if you have it on a beat, it could be that not every hit actually comes if it's like looping. So you could like give a certain MIDI note a probability. Let's say classic 50-50 would be it's either coming or not, which is fun because then it enables you to maybe have that one strong idea,
Yeah.
but let randomization and probability functions
Definitely.
take over.
Yeah. I mean,
so
there's
that-
so much power in pauses. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think letting a melody breathe is so important. So I think playing around with the probability of a note appearing or not is a very very strong tool.
Mm. Oh, there's another question.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not really about like creative flow or anything, it's just about like creative projects. I'm curious, for you personally, is there like an instrument or piece of audio equipment that you'd really like to work with in the future on one of your projects?
I mean, I use the Ableton Push a lot because I think playing around, like let alone all of the different scales you have on there that aren't just minor or major, open up like so many new worlds of melody writing and everything. And yeah, I have actually a really cool vocal effect tool, which is it's by Empress, called Reverb. And it's actually for the guitar, but there's so many cool like reverse reverbs and delays and like crazy like reverbs that go up and down that you can trigger and then like mix to your vocal sounds. And I use that Empress Reverb box
It's a hardware?
pedal. Exactly, it's a hardware live too, to just make my voice sound like an instrument always and use it as an instrument. And what I also like to do a lot, I mean, as you've noticed, I like to play around a lot with my voice, especially because what I do a lot also is DJ and then sing on top of DJing. And when you DJ, of course, there's no room for you to play around with instruments or with the music itself. So I use my voice as kind of like its own little synth through this pedal, Empress Reverb. And also actually through like the DJ mixer, because there's so many like DJ effects on there, and if you put them onto your vocal channel and just play around with like the chopper, like the the chopper or echo or just filtering your voice and everything. I think there's so many like sound worlds that you can open through that, and new sounds that you can kind of create out of your own vocals with the help of a little bit of technology. That is super interesting and super cool, and that I haven't seen that many people do, especially live. So I think that's like a very, very big thing that I do, and that also I think at least that was my plan, sets me apart a little from other people, because like I said, it's not that not that many people do it.
For that. So thinking about the sounds that you use, is there a piece of old equipment that sort of inspires your sound, maybe? Like an analog synth or something specific? Like I know I have a friend that loved the sound he got from, he used his dad's old Moog that he had lying about in the house, and it inspires a lot of his music.
I have to say, I don't have any like analog instruments, which is kind of sad. I only use plugins, which is, I guess, the new generation.
Digital native.
Yeah. But I am like a big fan of all. I think no matter what type of music you do, it's always just really important to have a piano somewhere in your apartment to kind of capture and work into a new idea that you have, and just always be there and accessible and be in your conscience, because you see it standing there. And I think that's something that has inspired a lot. I mean, I started at the piano, and as you can see, I still write some of my songs starting at the piano. And I think that would be like the number one tool, a piece of equipment, I guess, that has inspired, that also was part of my first steps as a musician, and that still is, and that still to this day inspires me every single day.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess it has like an extreme it's easy to pick it up, so to say. I mean, not that you pick up a piano, but you can just... It's
not physically.
There you go. Whereas a laptop could already have so many other steps involving like finding the sound, and then the idea might be gone. So for others it might
always
be
readily available to immediately sit down and start playing.
A classic example would be having a guitar. You can grab
course,
it
if you're a
and
guitarist,
you start.
That's the equivalent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned sort of setting yourself apart from other music makers, yet I would like to hear maybe just a few artists you look up to, just to inspire the room and see where you're coming from.
The number one artist I always mention is Sade, even though she does not make the type of music I make at all. But I think growing up, my parents listened to a lot of Sade, so she was always, her music was always playing, and I was always just inspired by her elegance, I guess, and her confidence in the music she makes, and timelessness also of her music. And then I think more modern artists, I guess, I listen to so much, but Caribou, I think, is a very big one. Moderat, of course. I'm Howling. So many. Oh God. Maya Jane Coles. Like I said, there's so many, so little women in electronic music. So someone like Maya Jane Coles, who's really over the years has made her own way as a woman in electronic music, has had an enormous impact on me. Also Oliver Huntemann, I think even though his music is a lot, harder than what I do, is always an inspiration for me, because I love, having the most different genres or different types of electronic music, and then taking something from each and every one of them and making that my own again. So yeah, to name a few, even though there's too many to mention.
I would say thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for Joplyn for sharing this. You have been an amazing audience.
Yes.
1.5 hours just flew by.
Yes.
And yeah, feel free to approach Joplyn or myself. And thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much.